white male.
Brutal attack on Hayes prison officer. Hayes prison officer kidnapped, handcuffed and beaten and stabbed by 2 inmates in brutal assault. On Monday, inmates David Omar Tyler, 31, of Atlanta, and Roman Christian Higdon, 31, of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, were both transported to the Chattooga County Jail and booked. According to court records, the pair forced a Georgia Department Corrections officer into a cell. Once inside the small, confined area, they locked the door behind them. The 2 prisoners handcuffed the officer to a bed frame with his own handcuffs, violently and savagely beat him with a carabiner attached to a large chain. They then stabbed him with a sharpened piece of metal in the head, back and legs. Tyler and Higdon are charged with felony kidnapping, felony aggravated assault and felony obstruction of law officers. Hayes State Prison inmate is facing charges after a stabbing incident that happened in January of this year. According to Georgia Department of Corrections information, 28-year-old Manuel Mendoza Garcia is serving a prison sentence for an aggravated battery conviction from DeKalb County, Georgia. His earliest release date was listed as 2024, but now he is facing additional charges. Court documents reveal that Mendoza Garcia was involved in an altercation at the prison in which he was accused of stabbing a fellow inmate identified as Michael Acevedo. That stabbing left the victim with a collapsed lung and the loss of vision in one eye. In the past 2 years, at least 57 inmates of Georgia state prisons have been victims of homicides, according to records the Atlanta Journal-Constitution obtained. The total breaks down to 29 homicides in 2020 and 28 in 2021. Inmate serving a 20-year sentence at the Hayes State Prison and tried has been sentenced for his fraud scheme to steal heavy equipment worth nearly $3 million from various dealers, all while behind bars. Young had been serving his sentence since 2010 for aggravated assault on a police officer and for racketeering. 2 Hayes State Prison inmates have been charged with murder in connection with the murder of a fellow inmate earlier this year. Jorge Renberto Ventura was reportedly murdered in his cell at Hayes in June. Ventura was serving a sentence for molesting a 13-year-old girl that he met online. According to statements made in June by Chattooga County Coroner Earl Rainwater, Ventura was stabbed to death at Hayes State Prison. 34-year-old Hayes State Prison inmate who was serving a sentence for molesting a 13-year-old girl was reportedly stabbed. The past 2 years, at least 57 inmates of Georgia state prisons have been victims of homicides, according to records the Atlanta Journal-Constitution obtained. The total breaks down to 29 homicides in 2020 and 28 in 2021 to death at Hayes State Prison on Tuesday. Many of the deaths were listed in the state's death certificate database and specified the cause of death. Other deaths were classified by the Georgia Department of Corrections or the Georgia Bureau of Investigation as homicides, but causes of death have not yet been reported. 3 inmates and an outside accomplice have been indicted on charges of conspiring to smuggle drugs into Hayes State Prison in Chattooga County, Georgia. Georgia Supreme Court reversed the murder conviction of a man charged with orchestrating the attack of a fellow Hayes State Prison inmate. Hayes State Prison guard was arrested Tuesday after allegedly smuggling drugs to inmates. Lachia Caterset Thomas, a 39-year-old lieutenant at the prison, is accused of bringing drugs to incarcerated gang members in exchange for money, Floyd County Jail records show. Thomas was arrested after authorities discovered marijuana during a search of a Rome home, the newspaper reported. Authorities believe Thomas was trying to smuggle the marijuana to members of the gangster Disciples Street gang. Hayes prison inmate has been charged with felony murder by Georgia Department of Corrections investigators. Timothy Greenlight Teasley, 27 meters, was booked by the Chattooga County Sheriff's Office this week and charged with aggravated assault and felony murder. Teasley has been incarcerated since his conviction for aggravated assault and robbery charges in September of 2012. Teasley was brought to Hayes from Jackson State Prison in Butts County. Sheriff Schrader said that the Department of Corrections has been investigating the murder that happened on March 19, 2020 while Teasley was incarcerated. Teasley would have been up for possible parole in 2022 on the early charges, according to information from the Georgia Department of Corrections. When a fourth Hays State Prison inmate was killed in February, Georgia Governor Nathan Deal knew something had to be done. Tougher security measures are in place at the Tryon, Georgia, prison for the most violent offenders. A new locking system has been installed and guards have stab-proof vests and soon will be armed with pepper spray. In the past 3 weeks, 16 officers gave their notices, quit or were transferred to another facility. That's twice the number who left Hays per month on average over the past year. Some guards said they fear the worst when the partial lockdown that has been in place prison-wide since Jacobs took over is finally lifted. It was after lockdown that inmate Damian McLean was strangled and beaten in his bed in December, said a former Hays officer who was privy to that information. The murder was the result that the doors don't lock. Now, with former warden Clay Tatum out and an acting warden in place, corrections officials say they are working overtime to upgrade their locking system and have taken other steps to improve security and reduce violence. Extensive interviews with guards, former guards and inmates suggest that administrators knew about the security problems but didn't do enough to fix them until 3 inmates were killed in 6 weeks. Weapons in Hays State Prison that looked like weapons, lines of barbed wire, sharpened pieces of metal, plastic or glass, screwdrivers. Then there are weapons that look innocent, a piece of paper, a cell phone. People who are in and out of the maximum security prison in Tryon, Georgia, say inmates will use just about anything to get an advantage. Mostly, what happens behind prison walls, intimidation, threats, gang activity and worse, has stayed behind those walls. Longtime corrections officer was killed Tuesday in an accident at Hays State Prison in Tryon, Georgia. The Georgia Department of Corrections is investigating the death of Gregory Dale Mitchell, a 25-year employee. Officials said his death was an accident but wouldn't give any details about how he died. 2 recent killings at Hays State demonstrate how inmates bent on mayhem can even reach beyond the walls of the prison, victimizing people on the outside. During the holidays, Derek Stubbs was beaten so severely that he died from his injuries a few days later. The other victim, Damian McLean, was strangled in his bed late at night after the doors should have been locked and unbreachable. Families of both victims, who were in their 20s, said they had been receiving threatening calls and demands for cash before the men were killed. "Send $300, she was told. Singleton said the coroner told her that her son died from blunt force trauma to the chest. GBI still hasn't arrested anyone or even called Stubbs' death a homicide. Hays State Prison is one of the most dangerous penal institutions in Georgia. Correctional Officer Leonard Schrader tried to help another officer who was under attack. The inmate struck me just below my nose with the homemade knife, cutting my upper lip in half," Schrader later wrote in the Georgia Department of Corrections incident report. "I received another cut just above my left eye before 3 inmates picked me up and slammed me to the concrete. Once on the ground the inmates were stomping and kicking my head while other inmates picked up a dining table and slammed it down on me." The report provides few details about who did what during the brawl. B.